Hi there, I'm Tony from Marathon Mates. On this episode, we're going to share some of the insights and experiences on how we keep the cost of running down. Yes, with the increases in shoe technology, the costs just seem to be increasing all the time. But we're going to share today how we keep our costs down. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the Flying Runr, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the Flying Runr podcast. Today, we're sharing strategies on how we keep the cost down, and hopefully you can cut the cost that comes with this thing that we call running. As usual, I'm joined by Tim and Tara from Team Ellis. How are you guys? What have you been up to?
Yeah, we're good. We're still on our bit of a rest recovery period until the new year, so we're just taking it light and easy at the moment. We did parkrun on Saturday, as always. Chermside Parkrun. It was a very big. We could have called it sweat run rather than parkrun.
Swim in your own sweat.
Yeah, we'd had a big storm on the Friday night prior, and obviously with that, as soon as the sun comes out in Brisbane, the heat and the humidity makes it very, very warm. But there was a lot of puddles on the ground, and I wasn't sure if it was from the rain the night before or if everyone running through before me had actually just sweated it all out. So, yes, it was very wet and hot and humid.
So for those who don't know, in Queensland, where we are in Brisbane, parkrun starts at 7 o'clock in the morning. And even at 7 o'clock in the morning in the middle of summer, it can be close to 30 degrees and 90% humidity or more. And that's sort of what we had on Saturday. So nice, fun conditions to be running in. But, it just is what it is. But, yeah, Tara's right. We've been just taking it easy. That was the only run in the past week. Interesting, letting the body just relax and sleep in a little bit and missing the alarm clock and not getting up and going for a run or worrying about stuff. But we know we need to do it, and we know we'll be better off next year, particularly in the early stages of the year, having this rest now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's went for a massage with Wayne, and you would have remembered Wayne from previous episodes that we've done on massage and how to keep the body moving. Went for a massage with him this afternoon, and I was falling asleep on the table. It was I obviously haven't run that much if I'm falling asleep during that massage, because normally it hurts like anything. So yes.
Yeah. And what about you, Tony? I saw you got some distance in this week.
Yeah, it's starting to feel real. So I went out and set off on a 10K run there on Saturday. Just did a mini compass run, as I call them, and towards the second leg, I realized I was going to come in at about 11.2. And so the first cutoff in Tokyo is the 11K. Oh, sorry, the second cutoff in Tokyo was the 11K cutoff. So I just thought, well, let's just see if I can make sure that I can get under the cutoff times that I need for both those. Which I did, and relatively easy. But yeah, I'm like you, it was stinking hot out there on Saturday. So this week I'm going to try for the next cutoff, which is the 16K. And now normally in a marathon, we'd look at that first 16K as being 2 hours. The cutoff worst case scenario and when I talk worst case scenario, all the cutoffs in Tokyo are from gun time. So which is 9:15, and if you cross the starting line or at 9:40, for example, which is what I'm thinking it's going to be, it's about a 2-hour 15 cutoff for that 16K mark. So I'm going to see how I go this Saturday with that. We did a treadmill run, our first one in our gym. We finally made use of our gym.
Hang on, treadmill running. This is new.
Yeah, and to be honest, I enjoyed it, but just Sharon doesn't want to run next to me now because I get distracted by everything and I'm moving speeds and everything all the time. So, but anyway, it was all good. So, yeah, feeling good. A little bit still stiff and sore in the body, but I'm just going to presume that that's all going to start to get better. So.
It will get better as you build up your training and your distance and strengthen the legs and those muscles around that ankle.
So this is our last show before Christmas for all our loyal listeners and viewers. So so we'll wish you all a very Merry Christmas now, just in case we forget towards the end of the episode, because we're going to be talking some really exciting stuff. I get excited. I'm a bit of a shoe geek. But before we do, let's talk about the news. So, Tim, I'm going to throw to you. What's been happening around the world this week?
All right, Tony. So, yeah, it's been another hectic week around the world, but I guess it kicks off with some good news for Australia. During the week, I think a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the upcoming nominations for the World Athletics Awards ceremony that they were doing. So good news for Australia. Australian Athletics was named as the winner of the Member Federation Award. So it means it was the best performing member federation out of all the athletics federations around the world. So each country is essentially its own federation. And so for Australia, it was able to distinguish itself in its accomplishments throughout the year. And as a result, positively contributed to the growth and profile of the sport. So that's pretty good news here for Australian athletics. You may recall we talked about at that time when we announced them as a nominee that they hosted the World Cross Country Championships in Bathurst at the beginning of this year. They claimed their first ever cross country medal, which was in the mixed relay event. We also got Oceania's first World Athletics Continental Tour gold meeting a few days later. And we became one of the best ever performing nations, I guess, or our best ever performing team at the World Championships this year in Budapest, where we won a total of 6 medals. So for Australia, that's a big event, a big deal. 1 gold, 2 silver, and 3 bronze, which is phenomenal and looks really good for Australia going into Paris in just about 7 or 8 months' time. It's not that far away.
Yeah.
So really good news. Yeah.
Certainly exciting times ahead for Australia. And there was more awards given out at the World Athletics Awards, and the Abbott's World Majors actually picked up the President Award, which is one of the awards. But I know that there's one, Tim, that you are even so excited about because my tip didn't win.
Yes, so I don't think your tip was even nominated, but we forget about that one. So they announced 6 athletes as the World Athletes of the Year. And I think it was 3 male and 3 female. And I think they worked it out. 1 was track, 1 was road, and 1 was field athletics. And I guess in the female side, what Tony's alluding to, my favorite female runner, Tajist Asafa, who is the current world record holder, not by a little bit, but by a long way, 2 minutes or so. She was named World Athlete of the Year on the road. Mondo Duplantis was nominated won the award, as did Kelvin Kipton for the men's for the road section. Faith Kipyeong, Noah Lyles, Ulama Rojas as well was nominated and won for that award. So speaking of Kelvin Kipton, he ran his first marathon. This is phenomenal when you look back on his year that's been. So 4th of December 2022, last year, he ran his first ever marathon. And it was 2 days after he turned 23. Since then, he's managed to fit in 2 more marathons in the past 12 months. And at the end of those 3 marathons, he's now the current world record holder, not by a little bit, by 30 odd seconds. So yeah, it's phenomenal again what he's been able to achieve in a very short period of time.
It's incredible, absolutely. Now, Tara, you would have received an email this week along with anyone else on the Abbott's World Majors group, and I think 3, 4, and 5-star people. Abbott's launched their Gold Club initiative this week. So, what were your thoughts?
I think it's a money grab, to be entirely honest, Tony. I looked at it and I thought, I don't think that that's the sort of money that I want to be paying to be a gold member of the Abbott's thing. I don't really think you get much value for that. I think you get like a pin or something and
a t-shirt,
a t-shirt or a singlet. It's $279
US.
US.
In all honesty, the forums that you can look up through many other different ways of looking for things, podcasts, Facebook, webinars, there's so many other options that you can get information from that I don't think paying for it through Abbott's is probably my personal choice. But look, there is other people that do it because I know it's sold out very, very quickly.
Yeah, $279 for a gold membership to Abbott's to get a pin, a singlet, some Facebook feeds and information, and an extra draw entry into the Abbott's World Major Marathons. Again, it just
there's not even a guarantee that you'll get a place.
No, and at the end of the day, extra draw entry and a couple of 100,000 people that might be going for it isn't really going to guarantee you anything. So I looked at it and it seemed like it was a lot of money for what it was. $279 US is probably close to 500 Australian dollars. That's a good almost half the deposit you need for a trip to Boston or Chicago or New York with Traveling Fit for the initial deposit. So
that's half a gym membership.
Yeah, it's also almost half a gym membership. So yeah, it's just a lot of money for what it actually is, I think. But maybe they're just tinkering with it at the moment to see what happens and see where they go. But if it was something like you'd get an extra perk at the end when you finish each race, you get the special gold members lounge or something to lie in afterwards and get a massage, or there was a special carb dinner or something before each of the races, then that might be something worth considering. But again, I don't see any value in it at the moment.
Yeah, I think the initial reaction, certainly online, has been one of it's in it. People are in it for the money, but I'm sure that there's going to be a select group of people that like the concept or the thought of being in the Gold Club, and they'll fork out for it. And there are a lot of people desperate to run majors that seemingly have no luck in lotteries and ballots. So I'm sure that there's some value in it for them. But and once again, maybe Abbott's are just playing with the whole idea to see what sort of a response they get and where they move forward. Because as we know, we've got a 7th major coming on board in 2025, so they need to sort of get the lay of the land, I guess. So
that 7th major is going to be interesting as well, the way Abbott's is talking about it. And it seems like you'll still get your 6-star for doing the original 6, and the 7th will be just an add-on with nothing else. So it's like it's part of the majors, but it sort of sits outside the majors as well, from what I can gather. But what that looks like.
It's going to be very interesting. Now, the last piece of news that we've got is the Honolulu Marathon was run on December 9. I think it's in a bucket list. I think we all want to run the Honolulu Marathon. 15,140 finishes. Not as quick as some of the marathons we talk about. Paul Lonyangatta from Kenya won the men's in 2:15, and Cynthia, also from Kenya. Geretich, also from Kenya, won the ladies in 2:33. So I know, Tara, Honolulu's on your bucket list. I'd love to do it one time too. So
yeah, I definitely want to do Honolulu. I think the no cutoff time really appeals to me as well, and there is a lot of people that finish after that 8 hours. So I think it would be one of those ones that I'd like to sort of do, have a bit of a swim in the beach, come off and keep going or something like that.
It's the times are slower, I think, Tony, as well, because they do run up over the top of Indian Head and then back, and then so they go out. Diamond Head, sorry, I don't know what
Diamond Head.
Diamond Head.
I only ever climbed up a Diamond I
No,
was
so they
there.
sort of start there in Waikiki and then go into Honolulu and then back out and then up over Diamond Head and then turn around and come back over Diamond Head. So I would imagine with the heat and also with the hills in there, it would be why those times are a bit slower. But
Yeah.
it is a one race. It's a Boston qualifier, so a lot of people get attracted to it. And interesting enough, from past years, Marathon Investigation tends to find a lot of people there that course, because it's one where there are a lot of opportunities to cut the course and come back and jump onto the other side of the road without people knowing. So he does pick up a lot of people there. So if you're going to go there and going to cheat to get your Boston time, you'll probably get caught out.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings us now to what we're here to talk about. Let's talk a little bit about shoes. Now, just a little bit of a disclaimer to kick us off. During the show, no doubt we will mention some of the brands that we use and some of the stores that we use. It's important to note that we have no commercial affiliation with any brand or site, but we would encourage commercial affiliation if any brand was that way inclined. But currently, we have no commercial affiliation, and we encourage you to do your own research for your own shoes. We have the shoes that we like, but that doesn't mean that we recommend them for you or that they are the shoes that you should be wearing. So just to get that out of the way. So first up, let's start with a little bit of the history of the shoe of your shoe journey, Team Ellis. So where did it all start and how did you end up now where you're really comfy running with the shoes that you're in?
Yeah, so look, I started my running journey, believe it or not, in Salomon Speedcross, which were used for trail running and for my obstacle running. And I didn't do a lot of road running back in the day. They're very narrow shoes. They're very uncomfortable when you try to run on the road. So I sort of played around a little bit, went to Athlete's Foot, which is a shoe shop here in Australia. They do free fitting. Played around a bit, wasn't really overly happy with any of the shoes that I had been fitted with. I'd been through Mizuno, Saucony's. I'd been through quite a few and just kept getting injured every time I was wearing them. Found a podiatrist online through one of my running groups, and the podiatrist that we use is actually a sports podiatrist. I ended up with plantar fasciitis from
really badly
from all my running changeovers of shoes, and had damaged my feet quite badly. I went to see Nick, who's our podiatrist, and he said to me, "This is not good. We'll give this a try. If you can't work it out, you might have to give up running." And he said, "I'd like you to go into Brooks Glycerin or Brooks Ghost." Fitted me with some orthotics, like custom-made orthotics as well. And after suffering from plantar fasciitis for 3 years, he got me fixed within 3 weeks. So I really highly recommend making sure you do get fitted correctly by the correct person, from personal experience myself. So I'm always in the Brooks Ghost now, but I do alter between the Glycerin and the Ghost depending on what I can pick up cheapest, obviously.
That's a story you hear a lot, don't you? That people start off in the wrong shoes, and I did as well. The first pair of shoes I started running in were some Adidas Cloud Foam shoes, and the only reason I started with them is I was in Yambar on holidays at the time. There's a sports store in the main shopping centre at Yambar, and every Christmas they had this table full of discount shoes. So they were the only ones in my size. So that's a great choice for a running shoe. But they went okay until they stopped going okay. I then moved into the Asics Kayano gels, and I started with the Kayano 23s. Got the 24s, and I got the 23s when the 24s were the major model, and then I got the 24s when the 25s came out. Asics make a great shoe, and I think my 23s did just under, I think it was 970 kilometers. I ran New York in them, so I would never say a bad thing about the Asics. But then I went to Brooks because I tried them on and they're a little bit softer, and now I'm running in Sauconys, and there's been a reason for my change every time. So I went from Kayano to Brooks because I wanted a lighter shoe and a softer shoe. And then I went again for the lighter shoe with the Saucony. But the challenge I had was I had to move from an 11 mil drop to an 8 mil drop with the Saucony. So I had to transition that. And but yeah, so that's a little bit of my story, and now I will. Who knows where I go, but I'm quite comfortable running in my Saucony guides for my shorter runs and the Saucony Tempers for the longer runs. So,
Do they have the same
So-
drop in them, Tony? Do they both
Sorry?
have the same, do they both have the same drop in them?
yeah,
Both.
they're both 8
Yep.
mil. Yeah,
Yep.
and the Kinvara Pros that I'm now wearing as my recovery shoes are once again very similar, but they're just a higher stack. So, so during this show, no doubt we're going to talk some basic shoe terms as well. So just to give everyone a little bit of heads up, I'm going to throw to you, Tim. What's a neutral shoe?
A neutral shoe is essentially a level shoe that doesn't have stacking one way or the other. So quite often, if you pronate your feet, or what's the opposite of pronate?
Supinate.
Whatever it is. So pronate is turning your feet inside towards your big toe. Whatever the other one is turning it out the other way, or maybe I've got it wrong, whichever way it is. So a neutral shoe will be just flat level shoe that doesn't add any sort of additional.
Good for orthotics and stuff like that as well.
So if you do your orthotics, a neutral shoe is good for putting your orthotics in, because then the orthotic is sitting flat inside the shoe
and it does the work for you
without anything else in it.
Yeah. So neutral shoes are probably 80% of the market and probably 80% of what people actually fundamentally buy. So we then have the stability shoes, and they are also known sometimes as the support shoe. And it's interesting because normally with a stability shoe, you get a little bit of extra support there on the inside of your arch, whether it's within the foam, and companies have different ways of doing it. But now what we see is now with the max stack that we're getting with shoes and the wider footprint, I guess is the way that I'd call it. A lot of companies now talk about inherent stability because there is a wider platform and because of the softer foam, that a lot of neutral shoes are now being recommended to some extent for people with mild pronation issues because the inherent stability. So it's very interesting to see what technology is doing. Stack, Tara, do you want to talk about the stack height?
It's the foam height, isn't it?
I think that isn't it that the drop.
No, that's
it is the foam
the
height.
foam height.
Okay, I'll leave it to you then, Tim. You can be the expert on the stack height.
Isn't it the foam thickness underneath your foot, essentially?
That's true and correct. Yeah. So, and stack height is really interesting because a shoe like the Brooks Ghost has a 31 mil stack height. And now we talk about max stack, and that can be anywhere up to 40 mil. And 40 mil is the maximum legal stack height that an elite runner can run in a race. But yeah, most of the time now we're seeing stack heights of the 36 to the 38 mil, but the best selling shoe on the market is the Brooks Ghost, and that's a 31 mil stack height. So Tara, do you want to talk about drop?
You know this one.
Yes, okay. So the drop is inside of the shoe, and it's where your heel is sitting, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, I do know that one of the reasons why with my shoes that I was getting injured in, and they do cause calf issues and hamstring issues if you're getting the wrong drop in your shoe. With my I do need a particular drop in mine, and that's why I do run with what I run with. Anything that is too low, I need to put foam pads underneath my orthotics to actually prop myself up. Otherwise, I'm getting tearing and pain in my calves. So that's another one of those things that you've really got to be careful with. If you are changing your shoes constantly, to be aware that if you're going to like a 0 drop shoe, you're running in a natural position that your body's naturally made to do, but that might not actually be the best position for your body to run in. So you may actually be put up into your toes a little bit.
So 0 drop means there's 0 difference between your heel, the height of your heel, and the height of your toes, or the ball of your foot on the ground. Right. So a 12 mil sack means there's a 12 mil difference between your toes and your heel. The heel's raised 12 mils up above your toes and your ball of your foot.
Yeah. And when I talked about having to transition from my 11 to an 8, it was purely because I was in a higher drop shoe because of the calf issues that I had early in my running. And as I built my calf strength, I was able to then transition down to a lower drop. So if I'd gone straight to that without doing the strength work involved in my calves, I would have had some serious problems with calf tears and whatnot. So I'll talk a little bit about the outsole. The outsole is the bottom of the shoe fundamentally. If you think about the tread or the grip,
the wearing layer.
Yeah, so where that's called the outsole. The midsole, I'm presuming, is the middle of the shoe, the foam cushioning in the middle of the shoe. Is that what you read it as?
Probably where your carbon plate would be as well. Is that
if you're adding carbon plates? Yeah, so
that's where you would be putting them. I'm assuming
it's the bit between the wearing layer and the inside of your shoe, essentially.
Yeah. And then your upper
is the stitched on bit on top of the foam. So that's all the fabric that sits on top that wraps around the top of your foot.
It does make a huge difference to your running as well, believe it or not. So if you get a fabric upper that doesn't have those breathability, you know how some of them have got those little mesh things that look like you could breathe through them. If you get just the plain fabric ones, they're actually tighter on your feet. So you need to lace differently or go for a wider shoe. They also don't breathe as much. So in the heat, your feet get hotter. And you can also get ones with Gore-Tex, which are waterproof. So this I know from personal experience. The Gore-Tex ones are really, really good when you're trail running through creeks.
But and often when you see updates on shoes, they'll be mentioning those terms, and you'll be able to understand fundamentally what has changed within the shoe. Which
before we go any further, I just want to also say, Tony, and I've said it before on other episodes, comparison is the thief of joy. So just because somebody else has a particular brand and model of a shoe and says they run well in it, doesn't mean it will work for your feet. So you really need to understand your feet, how they work. Are you a neutral? Do you stand and run neutrally, or do you need a bit of pronation? Do you turn your feet in? Do you need to protect your body and your ankles a little bit more? Do you need some additional drop? How much foam do you need under your feet? It does take a little bit of getting used to. And just because somebody says to run in something doesn't mean it's the right shoe for you. And unfortunately, none of the marketing out there from any of the shoe companies is really telling you to buy a shoe that suits your foot. It's all about this shoe's going to set your PBs. It's going to be awesome. It's going to make you run faster. It's lighter. It's better. That's for 1% of the population. The rest of the people can't fit their feet into that shoe and run effectively with it. So just be mindful when we are talking about shoes. Comparison is the thief of joy.
And I've also noticed I've brought shoes online before, and I've brought, like, say, Brooks Ghost 14s, and I've just gone and brought another set of 14s online, and they can be made in different countries. And being made, even though they're the same shoe, same model and everything like that, just be aware that if you are buying online, if they're made in different countries, they do change the shoes and they do feel different as well. So sometimes the females can be made in, say, like India or Bangladesh or somewhere, and the other males can be made in China. So I will mix up between male and female shoes depending on how I feel, mainly because of costs, because I know what I can get away with sizing. Be aware that if they are made in different countries, even though they're the same brand and same model, they will feel different.
They may feel different, yeah.
So let's talk about how do we keep updated on shoes, because I think it's important to understand that most runners will have a trial and error process of finding the right shoe for them, and but there are also going to be some runners that will unfortunately won't take Tim's advice and will run in a shoe because a running influence on YouTube said it was going to be the best shoe for them as a daily trainer. But running influencers are one way of keeping up with what's happening in the shoe world, but you just also need to be very mindful that even though a lot of them will say that they're not paid by suppliers, and some of them are, but the reality is they're getting a free pair of shoes to trial and test, and a lot of it's about brand relationships. So there are stories that some more honest reviewers suddenly get cut off from a certain manufacturer because they've had 2 or 3 negative reviews in a row. So just bear that in mind when you're listening to the influencers. They're going to give you the pros and the cons, and potentially they're going to talk up the pros in some cases. So another way to keep up with what's happening is in the UK, they've got the National Running Show, and in America, they have just completed the running event, which is called the TRE. And what they do in those shows is give you an idea for influencers and retail stores of what's coming up in the new year. So it's been interesting watching some of the influencers and some of that. They had a live stream. Kafusi did a live stream, I think, with Tommy Runs during the TRE, and like it's just fascinating where this market has actually gone. But the Brooks Ghost 16 is coming out in June, I've been told, based on what I've been listening.
Yes.
So with that, again, the Ghost 16s are different to the 15s, and again, different to the 14s. But however, from what I can gather, I think the 16s are probably closer to the 14s than what the 15s were. So it seems every odd number seems to be a bit weird. In saying that, the 13s were always my favourites. So yeah.
The 8s were my favourite, but they were 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do change every year, and it's again marketing. So just as you find a pair of shoes that you really love, chances are they'll change it every year, and then the changes might only be slight looking, but they may be enough to affect the foam densities or the sizing or the heel drops or whatever. And someone like myself, a few millimeters of change here and there is actually really noticeable, and it's something that Nick, our podiatrist, scratches his head over, that I can actually feel a difference of 1 or 2 millimeters difference in drops and in my orthotics when they start to wear out. So yeah, these manufacturers do get a bit funny, and it is hard to keep track of all the changes. That's why having somebody you can trust that gives you the right advice, that understands shoes, whether it's a proper running store or a shoe salesman or a podiatrist. We're fortunate. Nick keeps on top of all the various brands and keeps an eye on what's going on in the market. He usually gets samples from Brooks before they hit the market, so he can have a really good look at the shoes. He doesn't recommend Brooks Ghost to everyone. It just happens to be Tara and I are both Brooks Ghost. He recommends New Balance for.
He wears the 880s.
Yeah, so different shoes for different people's feet, but it is handy for us. We just send Nick a text message. Nick, I'm about to buy some new shoes. Should I go the Ghost 16s or should I go something else? Yeah. So there is a Ghost Max that they've just released. I talked to him about that the other day, and he said, I don't need it. He said it's really for people who need more stability, who move side to side on their foot. Their foot hits the ground a lot more. gives them a lot more stability. It wouldn't work for me, a Ghost Max, but for others it works really well. So it's about knowing that and forming a relationship with somebody that you know that can trust, or a trusted website, or a influencer, or somebody that you can trust.
However you do it, yeah. So the Ghost 16s, they're saying it's going to be a softer foam and a lighter weight coming out in June. Interestingly, New Balance are putting out some new designs this year that, in my eyes, look ugly, but some people are really raving. It's like a geometric design on the padding or the foam. There's a lot of hype around the new Glycerin 21 and corresponding as they move through next year. A lot of hype around the Nike Vaporfly 3, but I don't think there's ever been a Vaporfly 3 release without a lot of hype. There's been some mixed reports from the Saucony, which is my brand that I love. The Endorphin Pro 4 mixed. Personally, the Tempest is getting an upgrade, but it's only, from what I can understand, an upper upgrade. And that will obviously have some bearing on the current model being discounted. So we'll talk about that. I know that Santa's bringing me a pair for Tokyo. So and the Saucony Guide, which is my other shoe that I wear, the Guide 17 is what I would call a radical upgrade. They've really revamped that one, a higher stack. There's a lot going on, so I'm going to stick with the 15s for a while. And what it means also is that the Guide 16s are even more discounted than the 15s. So I've got maybe Santa bringing me another pair of those as well. So that's and one of the things you'll see as you get that pair of shoes is, if you know what's coming, you get a bit of an idea of, potentially what models are going to be discounted when they start to clear out. So, for example, with the Brooks Ghost coming out in June, potentially we're going to see some bargains and some clean outs coming through the first half of the new year. And I know if you go on the Brooks site now and click on their specials, the Ghost 14s are currently there at great prices.
50% off today.
Yeah, and then you'll potentially see that more and more with the 15s. But I think generally we accept the fact that we are going to see annual upgrades on most shoes as they come through. And once you get into the cycle, you can really start to understand when some of the bargains are going to happen. So
the other thing to note is, running shoes are not just a piece of foam with an upper on top and you strap them on and go for your run. They're actually an engineered tool. And it's important to understand, we're talking about all these things about stack heights and outsoles, midsoles and all that. They can get really complex and technical. I can't remember the website for the life of me, but I do have it, and I'll look it up and we'll post it to the show notes and put it on our Facebook page and Insta page. But there's a great website out there that actually cuts shoes in half and then compares them to other brands. So if you've got a Ghost 14 that you like and you really like the Ghost 14s but can't find them anymore, it recommends other shoes that are very similarly engineered that may be suitable for your feet as well. So it's a great comparison website, but the amount of data and stats that this website gets out of every shoe, it's not just a few little stats and measurements here. It is probably 4 or 5 A4 pages full of data on every shoe. So I'll get that website and we'll be able to post it up in the show notes, I think, Tony, because it's a good one to go to compare running shoes against, because of that high level of engineering that gets into them.
Yeah. So which model for you? And this is where we talk about, it's your choice. It's where you go. You've got to choose the best one that works for you. As an example, but you've also got to have a strategy that minimizes your costs. So my son, for example, loves the new Kayano 30s, and it's a great shoe. It's a max stack shoe. It's a one of those what they call super trainers, or but the problem is it's $279. So you get a lot of great shoes, and you get but when you're looking at a shoe that's $279, now the Kayano 30 doesn't have the old rubber on the the outsole, it's the foam. So I'm thinking he's going to be lucky to get about 400 Ks out of that shoe. And when you think about your training strategy and you might be doing 40 Ks a week, all of a sudden you're looking at potentially a new pair of shoes every 10 weeks. So I don't know if there's too many people who are just average daily runners that want to be forking out $279 or up to $300 every 10 weeks. So it's okay to love a pair of shoes like the 30s, but running in them every day may not be the most cost-effective strategy. And in some ways, that's why I've got my Tempest for my long runs and my guides for my smaller runs. And even at full retail, the Tempest is $279. The guides are $219. So because I'm using it's a great shoe. The guide, it's more of a daily trainer. So so it makes sense to have a couple of shoes in your rotations potentially that I never pay full retail anyway, so just quietly. But it does make sense. And even with Tim and Tara, with their use of their Ghost, I'm sure that they're always on the eye for a bargain, and that's the way that they can keep their costs down. So how many Ghosts would you currently have in rotation, Tim, for yourself?
Well, I'm on my 6th pair of Ghost 14s, but really I have about 2 pairs. And generally it's only one. I have one that I run in for my long runs, and then I might swap that with another pair during the week for some of the shorter runs, but it just depends. And as they start to wear out, I notice when they wear out. I can tell when a pair of shoes are going, all of a sudden my calves hurt. So that's that 1 to 2 millimeters of difference I start to notice. I notice when the soles are not are flexing more than they should do. I get a lot of pain in certain spots.
We also record our shoe kilometres onto our Garmin. So on Garmin, the Garmin app, you can record your shoes. You can enter your shoes and record how many kilometres you do, which really, really helps because Tim, as he was saying, he really notices you get about 680
640 kilometres
out of a pair of shoes, whereas I can get probably 750 out of mine. I rotate mine around where I have a long run pair of shoes or an outside long run pair of shoes, and then I'll have an inside or a short run pair of shoes as well. So also the heat makes a difference. So I'll go up to a different width depending on the heat. So look, at the moment it's hot and humid. Obviously your feet are going to get hot and they swell up. So I always go for a wider Brooks Ghost when I'm running in the heat.
A men's one.
And that's where it comes from, the men's and the women's. So I find that the men's are just that nice width for running in the heat and for the long runs because your feet swell up. So
females are lucky that way. They can switch between the female shoes and the men's shoes. It's not so easy the other way around unless you've got really small feet for men.
Yeah. So for example, I'm a 10D in women's shoes and I'll just be a 9B in men's shoes. So
and interesting, some of the brands in the last year have brought out unisex sizing. So not that I know a great deal about that, but I just know that some of the brands have. So it's important.
There's different colors too. So Tara notices there's different colors in the female range than there is in the male range as well. So she'll switch between them to get the best color that she's looking for at that time.
I actually find a good bargain with the men's shoes because not many men are in size 9 and the normal size. So I actually can get a really good bargain. And I don't care what my shoes look like. I'm not really overly fussy. And we saw my shoes that I wore to Berlin. And I picked those up for probably $100 with the nice little pictures on them. I don't care.
Absolutely. So let's some general advice. It was mentioned before, companies like Athlete's Foot will actually do a bit of an analysis, and a lot of the specialty running stores will as well. We should respect that. If you go into a store and they provide some additional services, the last thing you should be doing is then pulling out your phone and trying to find the shoe cheaper, because if we don't respect those shoe stores and services, they won't exist. And the other thing just to be mindful of online, especially this time of year, there is a a plethora, unfortunately, of scam sites that will come out. And so fundamentally, if a site that you're shopping seems too good to be true, it usually means they are, and that they should have an About Us page. They should be able to be contactable. They should have a physical address.
And a
all of
refund
those
policy.
things. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep, you're
please-
right about the shoe stores. We will make a habit, if it's a new model and there's significant change in it, we'll go and get fitted with the right size shoe. We'll pay a little bit more to buy that first shoe in the shoe shop because the person's done the work. We respect the shoes in the stores. But
Yeah.
once we've got the size and the fit right, we're good, and we just order online through the bargain sites as we need to.
However,
So
I'm
let's-
saying good bargains in the other
stores.
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yep, they clear out their old models just as much. So let's talk about some of our bargains and how we utilize them, because they do exist. And the first one that I've sort of mentioned a little bit earlier, whenever there's a model changeover or there's an upcoming changeover, you will see some bargains coming up. So once again, Brooks 14 to Brooks 15, you'll see that there is a fair bit of value to be found out there in Brooks 14. So always keep an eye out what's happening, what models are coming through, because you will tend to see them starting to come along. So
Yep,
next one is colorways, and then we're going to talk about Tara's beer shoes. So colorways. Colorways are an interesting one because they're a little bit more ad hoc, because sometimes you'll see certain retailers will clear out a colorway because for two reasons. One is, A, it's not selling and they want to get some sales happening and they want to get rid of it. Or that the brand has said that it's not selling, so they wanted to move it out of the market. But also I've seen where there's been good colorways that are discounted to reduce the options, so people start buying the less favored colorways. So I think it's really important. Some people, my wife, for example, always buys black shoes. Now, that's okay. That's her choice. But it limits her options on getting really great bargains, because if you're not phased on the colorway, you are going to have more choices out there, won't you? So...
I actually like the funkier shoes.
Yeah.
I must admit, I run in a wide shoe and I can't get every color that's on the market for that brand, for that model. So I'm limited to about 4 or 5 colors anyway, and they're generally not the fastest colors most of the time. But anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. And then you'll also have what we call our limited edition or season models. And Tara's shoes that she was alluding to were her beer shoes. So Brooks Ghost with little pints all over the Brooks Ghost, and she got them for a bargain. And limited edition shoes, you'll often see this. So for example, the Convara Pro came out with an NYC model, a Chicago model, and a Berlin model. Now, at the moment, they're all still full price at $299. But I would say, hazarding a really strong guess, is that there will be a clear out strategy, and I expect that the Convara Pro will discount those models sometime between now and Boston, so that they can start afresh with the Boston range. So once again, understanding that get you ready and prepared for potentially some of the stuff. So
And if you're like me and you actually like those ugly shoes, it's quite
I had the green Shamrock ones at one stage there to celebrate St. Patrick's Day for Brooks, and they were like a fluorescent green color with shamrock leaves all over it. It was quite.
I think they're great and a good conversation starter.
You can even get Christmas themed ones.
Yeah. So some of the discount marketplaces, Catch, Kogan, and eBay, may often be the place for bargains. Sometimes on eBay you can get current models, which is really interesting. So that's where a particular retailer's decided if they're not selling size 11s, they'll put the size 11 on eBay, and you might get a bargain. And an example of that is I've got an Endorphin Pro never worn at the moment, but that's a $340 shoe that I got from eBay for about $203. So sometimes you just got to be lucky. Now, places like DFO are a great source of last year's models.
That's in Australia. DFO, for those overseas, are your
Direct
secondhand,
factory
direct factory outlets. So they're just it's the second stores essentially.
Yeah. So and also a lot of the shops, like you'll see a lot of the brand shops. You've got ASICS, for example, our local one down here at Airport. You've got ASICS, you've got Puma, you've got Adidas, you've got Nike, you've got Brooks, and now you've got Hoka in there, and New Balance. So you can get some really decent bargains, but they won't have the current models.
No. Or all sizes.
All sizes.
Yeah, true. Major sporting chains may not be the best place, and when I talk here in Australia, it's a brand or a chain like Rebel Sports will often have specific models brought in to be the lower end of the market that may not be the best shoes for you to be running in, but often you'll see that they'll carry the full price range at full price. And then they'll have arrangements with the suppliers where they take the old stock back on changeover of on models. So you won't see them often clear out old models because they'll have a supply arrangement.
And that's where those old models will go to the DFO and places like that. So that's why there's never a consistent brand or size that you'll get there.
Yeah. Now, the major online sites for the brands themselves are often a great source for continuing research. And I know Brooks have a very clear link in their menu for specials. I know Saucony has one that says sales, but most of the major brands will have an area where they've got their fundamentally their direct factory outlet stuff online, and they're easy to find. So at any one time, those links are available, and you can go see what the brand themselves are clearing out.
I think it's also good. Like we sign up for a lot of brands that we run in, so we actually sign up to their mailing lists and we get their emails. And might be a bit of spam sometimes, but like I can tell you today, I got an email from Brooks saying they've got 50% sales coming up to Christmas and then into the Boxing Day sales. So 50% off all clearance items, which is good value. You don't get that sort of at other times. And I know that's the same. Under Armour does the same for the apparel. I know
New Balance does, because I do that for our son's shoes.
So
there's also websites like Sportitude and stuff like that will send me emails.
Yeah, Running Warehouse as well, that give you their discounts. So adding yourself to mail lists is a great way of keeping yourself informed of when these sales come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we're looking at Boxing Day sales that are going to be happening very, very soon. We've got other things like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Easter's normally a good time as well. And many of those online retailers like Sportitude and Running Warehouse will often do a blanket 30% off or a 20% off. So once again, get on the mailing list, get the communication, because it's quite interesting how often you can really pick up a bargain in the shoes.
Yep. And we tend to, if we're looking for shoes, we'll have 4 or 5 websites on at the same time, and we're looking at the same shoe and comparing prices across companies as well. So just because Brooks has them for 50% doesn't mean somebody else doesn't have them cheaper. So yeah, it is definitely worth looking at. And most of the sites, if you spend over $100, which you generally do for your running shoes, they'll give you free delivery anyway. And on top of that, most have very good refund policies and will take the shoes back even after you've worn them once or twice anyway. So generally, you know, the refunds and the deals online are pretty solid.
Yeah.
However, do check the terms and conditions on what Tim just said, because not all of them do that.
Most of the reputable ones do.
Yeah. And you can also just simply do a search on Google for a particular brand of shoe that you want, and then just go onto their shopping. You know how it's got search images shopping, and sometimes you can get a really good comparison of what's happening on a particular pair of shoes at that particular time. So generally, I don't find Amazon to be a good source. I haven't talked to a runner that found Amazon to be a great source of bargain shoes. But eBay can be, but Amazon can be a good source for, you know, some of the clothing that we wear. You get a lot of the lesser known brands um, on Amazon, and most of them are coming out of the same sort of factory as maybe some of the brand names. But DFO is probably my recommendation for clothing. What about you guys?
Yeah, clothing is something we're pretty particular about. Once you find something you like, you tend to want to stay with it. So I'm very particular about the shorts I run in. I know, Tara, you're particular about the tights you run in,
Yeah.
and the tops and bras and things you run in. But it's one of those things, I think for us, again, it's keeping an eye close to those retailers, getting on their mailing list, knowing when their specials are out, and then buying a couple of pairs at a time. Singlets don't bother me. I can wear pretty much any singlet to run in, but shorts, they've got to have pockets in the right spaces for my gels. They've got to have the right internal underwear and stuff inside of them so that I don't get chafing in certain parts. I don't like shorts that are too short, and I don't like shorts that are too long, and I don't like shorts that have got to split up the side. What else?
He's the hardest person ever to shop for gym wear with, trust me. But
he is very particular, isn't he, Tara?
He is very particular. And
because I know it works.
But he sits there and goes, oh, I don't care what singlet I run in, that I buy to run in. He has not brought a singlet to run in because we get all stuff. So he's lying. He has not brought a running shirt for so many years, and it's not. When was the last shirt you brought, Tim?
I got a singlet just the other day from Run Down Under for next year. I paid for that.
It was a membership fee that you got.
No, singlets again. That's why I say I'm not particular about singlets, but shorts I'm very particular about, as I know you are with your gear, Tara. So.
Chafing things either, but I'm not quite as particular as Tim, where I'm like, you know, can't have this. I don't like those ones that are too short. Obviously, I'm a bit old for that sort of stuff. But I do like the ones with the side pockets, so I can put my phone into it, and I do like a little key pocket in the back, or a little pocket in the back as well, or in the front. I usually wear my flip belt anyway, so, but just for general runs, I like something in the pocket where I can just grab my phone out really quickly. Yeah.
So shoes, we generally stick to the ghosts and we keep to the same, and they just change the models. With the clothing doesn't change too much. They do change colors and maybe the style a little bit here and there, but for me, I run in Under Armour shorts, and it's pretty much the same short they've had for the last 4 or 5 years or 6 years.
Changed quite
they changed a little bit.
When we first started running with clothing, and you know, technology with wicking and all that sort of stuff's changed. So just be aware, don't run in cotton is the only thing I do have to say.
All right, so
special that you run in?
I wear LKSD shorts, because to me, I've got to have zippers on both sides of my shorts. I do not understand why more running shorts don't have a zipper, because I like to have my stuff secure. Outside of that, I think with all the shirts we get from events and races and touring, I was going through my T-shirt drawer the other day, and I saw a tag from an ASICS tag. So it's interesting. I buy a shirt and think, oh, that's nice, and then it just sits in my drawer because I'm wearing everything else that I much prefer to wear anyway. So, but yeah, great advice. Get on the mailing lists and understand what it is that you like. So I hope that you've taken some of the tips that we've shared. Hopefully you can utilize some of the strategies that we've used to keep your costs down. We're coming towards the end of the show, and you know what that means. We have got time for Tim's tip. So, Tim, what's your tip for this week?
Yeah, it's my turn. My tip this week is to know your gear's limits and know that not everything lasts forever. And it's a key thing, particularly with running shoes. I mentioned before, I get about 640 kilometers out of a pair of running shoes. That's what they're engineered to do. If I tend to run further than that, they're not going to work as effectively and do the job. And that's when injuries can kick in. So record the usage of the gear. So you can retract the distance, record it on Garmin, record it on Strava, or you can go an old school spreadsheet. Distances are generally only recommended. So a lot of the suppliers will recommend on their boxes or in their gear how far they can run or what they recommend them to be used. But remember, different usage, different trails, different roads, different surfaces will mean different impacts on that engineering in the shoe.
Also, different weight of the people that are wearing those shoes will change that.
I'm a lot heavier on my gear, so it tends to not last as long. I guess, as we talked about, rotate your shoes if you can regularly. And if you, the other way to really tell if a shoe's starting to go is the amount of flex in the shoe itself. So if you hold the shoe out in front of you and bend the toe down underneath the shoe and try and reach the back of the heel, if you can bend it all the way around and touch the heel of your shoe, it's probably overcooked and it's probably no longer an effective running shoe. It's probably time to throw it away. Shoes are meant to be stiff. They're not meant to be that flexible that they can bend all the way back down over to the heels. So just be mindful of those sorts of things. Understand the engineering that goes into your gear. Understand how long it's going to last for, and then just monitor it. That's my tip.
Great advice. Great advice. So I'm going to throw back to you, Tim. What's happening next week?
Well, the next week's going to be an interesting show because it's our final show of 2023, believe it or not. So we're going to do a review of the year that's been. We're going to talk about some of our highlights and what we've enjoyed this year, what races we really enjoyed, what we'd like to go back and do again if we had unlimited funds and time. But we're also going to issue some Flying Runr awards out to athletes and performances of the year, and even maybe a guest on the show for the year. We haven't worked it all out fully, but we will over the next few days. So definitely stay tuned and, listen in to see who's going to win those inaugural awards.
It promises to be an exciting thing, and who knows, we might just do a little bit off the cuff as well as we go through that. So our the year in review and awards for next week. So anyway, I hope everyone has enjoyed this episode and took a little bit of our tips and strategies. If you do enjoy the podcast, please like and subscribe wherever you've listened to. It's always awesome sitting here on a Monday night with Tim and Tara and talking running. And as we know, runners love talking running. Videos of this episode are always available on Spotify and YouTube, and audio is, of course, Apple, Amazon, Google, and just about every other popular podcast platform out there. Remember, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we're going to catch you next week. Until then, Merry Christmas and happy running.
Merry Christmas. Happy running, everyone.
Bye. Ho, ho, ho.